Thank you. I want to start by telling you a story. So this is a story from Ethiopia, where I've been living and working for the last 5 years. This is a story about a girl called Lemlem. Lemlem's 14 years old, and she lives in a small town in a region of Amhara in northern Ethiopia. Lemlem's life is tough. Last year, her mother died, and so she spends most of her days juggling household chores, looking after her younger siblings, and trying really hard to get to school, which she absolutely loves. But last month, something changed all that. Lemlem came home and her house was full of activity. Her little brother was jumping up and down, really excitedly talking about a party. But Lemlem didn't really understand what was happening. That's when Lemlem's father came home and he said to her, "It's been decided. It's been decided, Lemlem, that next month you will be getting married." Lemlem was in shock. She didn't know what to do. Then the second bit of information came in. Lemlem no longer needed to go to school. This was the time for her to get ready for her wedding and for her marriage. Lemlem sat frozen. She didn't know what to say. She wanted to shout. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run, but she didn't say any of those things. She sat there, completely quiet, because she knew this was not the start of a conversation. This was not a decision that she was meant to comment on. So, what happened to Lemlem? Well, forgive me for a minute, because Lemlem is not a real person. Lemlem is a fictional character that we, Girl Effect, the organisation I work for in Ethiopia, that we've created for a radio drama and for other media products to empower adolescent girls. So why do we do this? What's the vision behind it? That's what I want to talk to you about today. Because though Lemlem's story is fictional, actually it's based in fact, and it reflects the realities of many teenage girls in Ethiopia today. There are 10 million teenage girls in Ethiopia, and 1 in 4 are getting married by the time they're 15. 1 in 3 have a baby by the time they're 19. And although we know that most girls are getting the chance to go to primary school, actually only 6% finish. That means that there are millions of teenage girls that are not able to go to secondary school. And that situation is really, really different to boys. But these are just the statistics, and they only tell half the story. It's when you start speaking to teenage girls, and that's what we do at the start of all our processes. When you start speaking to teenage girls, that's when you really understand the depth of the challenge. That's when you start to understand what some of the root causes are, and that it's not just about a lack of opportunity for girls, but it's also about a lack of voice, that they don't have a voice in shaping the decisions that affect their lives. And this plays out really differently for girls and boys in their teenage years there. So what you start seeing is that for boys, although they don't have a trouble-free adolescence like any of us, what you do see is for boys, it's a phase of expanding education, of expanding opportunity, more chances to be independent, and really critically, they get more decision-making freedom. For a boy, they're stepping centre stage into their teenage years, into their life, and developing themselves as decision-making adults. But for girls, that's not really the case. In fact, the opposite is true. What's happening for girls is the focus of their teenage years is about preparation for marriage and for motherhood. And so what's actually happening is they're not getting a chance to say what they want or need, but it's about conforming, about staying silent and supportive. So while the boys are developing to become centre stage and decision makers, in a sense the girls, what's happening is they're going backstage in support of others. And I think the injustice of this, it really hits me when I think about what it was like to be 14 years old. When I look back to how that felt, what I needed. So I grew up in the UK and to Indian parents. And when I was 14, for me, it was all about freedom, fighting for more freedom. I look back on that time and I think I was always fighting for doing more, whether it be going out with my friends more, starting to travel on my own more, or just to be able to say more, say what I wanted when I didn't believe what was being told to me. And I think it was about that time that my dad started saying to me that I should become a lawyer, because all I did was argue with him. But then he quickly told me he definitely only wanted me to become a doctor, because he was Indian. So I just fought him on that too. But when I look back at that period, and I think to myself, okay, I remember it being a little frustrating, but it was also very formative, because that was a time when that really defined who I am today. That was a time when I was developing my confidence and my courage to speak up and disagree with things that I didn't believe were right for me. And I was doing it all in the context of knowing that my parents valued my opinion, that they thought my concerns were legitimate. They were listening to me, and they cared because they felt that I should have a voice in shaping my future. But actually, millions of girls in Ethiopia and around the world don't get that luxury. So what we do at Girl Effect is try to challenge these underlying belief systems. And we use media to try and change the way that girls see themselves and that society sees girls. And we use media because we are trying to connect to societies at scale, but also because we want to connect with people and influence them not just rationally, but emotionally. Because if you want to change behaviours, you have to speak to both the heart and the mind. So in Ethiopia, what we've done is we've built a brand called Yenya, and it encompasses a range of content and products that we know that teenagers really love and want to engage with. So a radio talk show, radio drama, TV programs, music, live performances, all of which are all focused on spotlighting girls and the potential of girls, putting their stories into the mainstream of Ethiopian society and from their perspective. And we try and use storytelling and role modelling across all our products. And we do this to inspire girls so that they have the courage and confidence to speak up against things that matter to themselves. And importantly, just have confidence in themselves. But we're also trying to inspire societies to think differently about girls, about their potential, to challenge the status quo, to recognise that girls should be listened to and they should be decision makers in their lives. I think the work we're doing is really important. I'm very passionate about it, and I think it's really important for 3 reasons. So first, if you want to solve the problem of intergenerational poverty, it's really important to empower teenage girls. There is overwhelming evidence in the world today that if you inspire and empower girls and young women, if you inspire them to make positive decisions in their life, in health, in education, in family planning, then the benefits not only come to them, but they come to their communities, that they're transferred to the next generation, the multiplier effect. The second reason I think it's really important to do this, particularly in the countries that we're working in, these developing countries, is that if you don't challenge the underlying belief systems, then actually other development efforts that are happening are likely to be ineffective. So what I mean by this is you can build schools, but really what's the value if girls have to drop out at the age of 14 because their parents are valuing marriage or household chores above their education? You can build health clinics, but really who's benefiting if a girl doesn't have the courage to walk through the door, or she doesn't have the confidence to ask for what she needs or talk about her body? The third reason why I think this is really important is just my own experience. So we've been working in Ethiopia for 5 years. We've reached 8 million people with the work we do. And we have built really robust evidence to show that it's working, that we are managing to shift attitudes among communities and among girls. We know that 2 out of 3 of the girls that listen to our work, that consume any of our products, say they have more confidence because of it, and they believe in their aspirations. But we also know that a listener of our radio drama is twice as likely to speak up against violence or against their child marriage than someone who hasn't listened. So this, for us, is just the beginning of the journey. And this is something that we want others to join us. Why? Because changing belief systems takes time, and it takes the efforts of many. But also, the need is really great, not just in Ethiopia. There are 500 million teenage girls in the world today, and 9 out of 10 of them are living in developing countries. So most likely, many of them will be having a teenage experience that is much more like Lemlem's than it was mine. I think we need to change that trajectory. We need to live in a world where girls don't have to get married at 14, but actually can get married when they choose to. When girls don't have to drop out of schooling, but get a chance to finish their education. We should live in a world where girls don't have to have children when they are children, but instead get the chance to become who they want to be. Get a chance to have a voice in shaping their decisions for their future. Empowered girls that can change their lives. Empowered girls that can go on to change the lives of others. That's the world that I want to live in, and that is the world I want to help create. Thank you.